day and welcome to the beautiful Plas Newydd Woods here in Llangollen. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk you through the equipment that we're going to use during the Citizen Science programme. This can act as a refresher if you just want to catch up on reusing the equipment, or if you're new to it and you want to see how we use it. So the equipment that we're going to give you is equipment to test phosphate and turbidity within the tributaries of the River Dee. So first things that we've got our phosphate strips that are going to come in a tube like so. We've got a test tube and we've got a syringe. We've got a bucket, we've got a string, and we've got a turbidity tube. Now, first thing I'm going to show you is how we monitor the phosphate. So really simple. The first thing we need to do is we need to acquire a sample. So we do that by doing this safely. All of this will be taught on your training and explained in the handbook. So we're going to get ourselves a sample, preferably off a bridge, somewhere where we can access the water, and then we'll move on to the next step. So now we can measure the phosphate in this sample. The first thing that we do is make sure that the test tube and the syringe are both cleared out with the sample that you've got out the river. This is so it avoids any contamination from the previous sample, or if you've washed it in tap water, bear in mind that tap water's got a really high phosphate concentration, so it's important that we clear it out before. So we're just gonna get water in the syringe, clear it out, make sure that there's nothing from the previous sample in there, and we're gonna do the exact same with the test tube. I'm just gonna use that in the test tube, bit of a shake, empty it out. That just gets rid of any residue. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to fill up this test tube 10 mils of the sample that you've collected. Luckily enough, the syringe that we give you is 10 mils as well. So we're going to fill up the syringe, fill up the test tube, just get it to 10 mil, there is a line on there. Fill up the syringe, the test tube with your sample, and then what we need to do is get a phosphate strip into this test tube. Now this is a bit that can get a little bit fiddly. You got your test tube strips, you got your sample strips, sorry, phosphate strips inside this pot. What you're going to do is you're going to open it, get one phosphate strip out and close it. It's really important that we minimize the amount of water that goes in there. We don't want to contaminate the rest of the phosphate strips. We can now pop that down. The next step is we are going to put the phosphate strip into the lid of the test tube. So we fold it in half, like so. We pop it into the lid so that it doesn't go anywhere, so that it's attached like so. And then we put it into the test tube. Once it's in the test tube, we turn it upside down and back the right way around 5 times. So that's 1. You can see the bubble moving as it goes all the way around. 2, 3, 4, and 1 more, 5. Once you've done 5 turns, we take the top of the test tube off, and hopefully the phosphate strip comes out with it. Okay, now you're going to pop that somewhere where you remember it, and it can go in your pocket to go home with you. Make sure you don't leave those strips hanging around by the river. So that goes down, and then the way we test how much phosphate is in the water, which is measured in ppb, what you do is you pop the phosphate tube, pop the test tube, sorry, onto the white square on your phosphate pot, and then you're going to look down it and you try and measure what colour it matches with on the outside of the pot. Now if it's between 2 colours, so for example if it's between 100 and 200, we go to the lower number. Those numbers on the pot correspond directly with what you can input into the data form once you've finished collecting the sample. So have a look. Whichever one you think it's best at, go to the lower one. They are quite similar. It does take a little bit of practice. So have a go first, and then pop that into the form once you're done with it. We can discard that now and look to move into testing turbidity.
So what we're going to test now is turbidity. And turbidity is essentially how cloudy the water is. So it's the suspended sediment in the water. It's a good idea to test turbidity first before your water sample settles. So what we have here is a turbidity tube with a cross on the bottom. And the aim of the game is to fill this tube with water until you can't see the cross at the bottom. At that point, you can then go to the side where there are the marked readings, and you can look at what line the water is the closest to. It'll be numbered, and you pick the closest number. So in this instance, we're going to use this water sample, but it is quite clean. And if I use the whole water sample, I can see that cross really clearly, and I would be able to see it if I filled it all the way to the top. So in this case, the reading would be below 12, and that's as good as you're going to get. If your water is very, very dirty, it could go down to 240, which is your maximum reading. So it could be above 240, which means you have very dirty water. Don't get too hung up on the measurements. Usually they say if your line is in between two numbers, they usually say round down, and that should give you